Motoring Forum has been discussing issues concerning the government's PUV Modernization Program. And with consolidation deadline passed and the transport authorities now looking at the next stage of the program, Motoring Forum discusses more issues that still concern stakeholders. Transport authorities are now touting 74% of jeepney franchises consolidated nationwide, 51% in Metro Manila as a success. In the words of Department of Transportation Secretary Jaime Bautista, the hard deadline was effective, and so will the PUV Modernization Program. He also says there would no longer be an extension, even as other DOTR officials believe a sufficient number of PUVs has consolidated or been absorbed by cooperatives and corporations to avoid any transport crisis in the future. According to Bautista, with consolidation effectively done, the DOTR will focus on rationalizing routes to deploy PUVs more efficiently to ensure against the cutthroat competition that characterized jeepney transport for years. Refuting critics of the PUVMP who say that it is anti-poor and that it would see drivers losing their livelihood, Bautista argues that the co-ops and corporations would still need drivers for their modern PUVs, and they have agreed to absorb many into their operations. Bautista also reiterates earlier assurances that those who've consolidated will be given time to modernize their operations. 5 to 8 years, he now says, even as government will continue to help them with subsidies and soft loans. Still, these assurances are not convincing those who don't agree with how the government is implementing the PUVMP. They are still arguing that government should put the brakes on the PUVMP, which has cost the livelihood of not just drivers and individual franchise holders, but also those supporting the jeepney sector. One of those pushing this argument is Elmer Francisco of Francisco Motors, which has come out with a more affordable e-jeepney that meets government standards for modern PUVs while still maintaining the iconic traditional jeepney design. Despite supporting the PUVMP in a way by providing participants with an affordable e-jeepney, Elmer Francisco believes government should hit the pause button on the program. The chairman and chief executive officer of local jeepney manufacturer E. Francisco Motor Corporation says the PUVMP has seen local jeepney manufacturers, both the big ones like Francisco Motors in Sarao and a handful of backyard jeepney makers, lay off workers or close shop altogether. Elmer Francisco points out a flaw in the PUVMP, which needs a bigger allocation for subsidies, noting that the 1.2 billion peso allocation will only subsidize 4,200 units, while the target is to replace 250,000 old traditional jeepneys. Joining a cooperative also has its drawbacks. According to Elmer Francisco, some co-op kingpins demand money, up to 30,000 pesos, from drivers to become members of co-ops. Others noted that consolidation and joining cooperatives meant losing ownership of their jeepneys, and if the co-op is mismanaged, they will end up with nothing to show for their participation in the PUVMP. Already, Congress is moving to investigate complaints about the corrupt practices that may have tainted the conceptualization and planned implementation of the PUVMP. House Speaker Martin Romualdez wants to investigate allegations that current transportation officials are in cahoots with previous officials in negotiating for the imported modern jeepney units that will replace the old units. Meanwhile, Senator Raffy Tulfo is also raising questions about government plans to purchase vehicles from China for the PUVMP, saying this reeks of corruption when local makers can produce a quality modern jeepney at a lower cost. The LTFRB has come out to say that co-ops are free to choose from whom and what models of modern PUVs they plan to acquire and replace old units. Finally, House Speaker Martin Romualdez is asking the Department of Transportation to review the PUV Modernization Program. That the PUVMP will push through is a given. It's the timelines and targets that could change. That's our Motoring Forum this week, courtesy of Suzuki Philippines.